on this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.
I'm going to go Jordan Tyson. I think the Saints desperately need a bigger body wide receiver to put into this wide receiver room.
I would admit that my wanting the Saints to go Jeremiah Love is partially based on I just find him crazy fun to watch.
I'm just going to do this.
Oh.
I love. I take an offensive tackle, and this is one. And welcome into another edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. This time, a pre-NFL scouting combine edition of the show. Thank you very much for being here with us. I am Ross Jackson. The malevolent Doug Mouton. Thank you very much for joining us here.
It's pre-combine, but it's also pre-NFL free agency.
Right,
and I think a lot of the decisions coming in the next couple of weeks, how would you describe the order of what you do? You sort of have to decide on your own guys first, right?
That's always the priority for most NFL teams.
Sure.
It's take care of your guys in-house first and then go out to the market and see if there's anything that you want to add to that. But you need to set that fundamental base level of what do you have in the first place to build off of.
Yeah, and you don't know what you need until you know what you're bringing back.
Right.
And we do have some questions, but the one I want to start with you is Derek Carr.
Yeah, I knew
Do
it.
you believe that he is coming back? Like, where do you put the believability of all of this?
Yeah, so I believe that he wants to come back.
Okay, that's
I
fair.
believe that there are teams that are serious that if he did come back, that they would be interested in him. I don't know, though, if the overlap between those teams and him are ones that would be super agreeable. He said he needs two things before he makes a decision to return to the NFL. One, he's got to be healthy. And then two, he wants a shot at a Super Bowl. He wants to be able to compete. And I think that that's a great thing to say out loud, but I don't know how many opportunities you're going to have with teams that are also looking for a quarterback in this scenario. You know what I mean?
Although that would work in theory with a contender if he wants to go to Buffalo and be a backup.
Right.
So
But you and I know Derek enough to know that's probably not what he's looking for.
Because I think the health is going to come. I don't think his injuries are such that he's never going to be healthy again.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's so far past his prime that he couldn't get healthy.
Right.
So I believe he'll be healthy enough. I do believe the teams that would want him as a starter would not be teams that are competing for a Super Bowl.
I think there's one that makes sense, and that's the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Vikings are kind of the one and only. Maybe you can say the Pittsburgh Steelers too, but with Mike McCarthy now the head coach there, it feels like Aaron Rodgers might be willing to come back to that situation. But it feels like Kevin O'Connell, the magic that he had with Sam Darnold and all that, and what that team has from a defensive perspective, as well as, look, one of the best weapons in the NFL, maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL, and Justin Jefferson, that feels like the one team that makes the most sense for him to say, okay, I'd come back for that.
Although in Minnesota, they know all that. And Derek Carr is not their only option for what they might do at quarterback. Yeah. And Minnesota would have to view him as the best option.
Yeah.
Do you think that part's possible?
I think that's possible. I mean, otherwise, their other options are J.J. McCarthy, who was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last year. And who knows, maybe this is the time he's got a full offseason ahead of him. Maybe all of a sudden he can take a leap. But we know the NFL is not patient with young quarterbacks.
Right.
And then maybe their other option is Kirk Cousins again.
Right.
And where's the separation between Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr at this point?
Or try to go get somebody like Malik Willis or one of the other guys that might be out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that is their best option.
And so, there's options out there. But look, no matter what happens, if Derek Carr comes back, the biggest winners are the Saints because they get something for nothing because somebody's got to trade in order to get him there. They're not going to get a lot.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're going to get maybe a day 3 pick.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe a package
day 3 pick would be great.
Great.
Yeah.
For a guy that
if
has
somebody
no
offered a
future
7
here,
for Derek Carr,
yeah.
Oh my God, I'd consider that the biggest win of the year.
Right. What else are you going to get?
What else are you going to get? All right, let's show you what's on the menu tonight on this episode of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. We are going to start with the large plates.
Yeah.
And the large plates tonight, Ross, are... We're going to talk heading into the combine. This is a guy we've been talking about a lot.
The largest of plates.
The largest of plates. And of course, Jeremiah Love of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. If that 40 time is what I think that 40 time is going to be, he becomes a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I mean, look, if he's in the 4.4s, he's still a top 10 pick. You know
No
what I mean?
question.
That or better, and I think he'll be that or better.
I think he'll be that or better. But we mentioned getting your own guys done first.
Yep.
That's two of your own guys you got to make decisions on. That's Cam Jordan and Demario Davis. We will talk about those guys. And then the small plates.
Hey,
do you know who that is?
That's Torricelli Simpkins.
It is. Last year at the NFL Scouting Combine. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll be taking a look with our good friend. We'll be telling you a little bit about the guests that we're going to have here in a moment, but we'll be taking a look at the NFL Scouting Combine. Those guys will be in attendance, taking a look in Indianapolis at who could potentially be in the next draft class. And of course, along with Jeremiah Love, another popular name consistently connected to the New Orleans Saints is Jordan Tyson. So we'll ask, what do you do if both of those guys are on the board at 8?
Yeah, I'm very curious what our guests will say about that. And that guest that I'm really curious about, of course, is Keith Sanchez. Does a great job on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. What do you do if both of them are there? What do you do if neither one of them are there?
Right, also a good question.
Also a good question. And the comic genius that is Ricardo Lecompte will also be joining us. And in our drink tonight, the last call is
Ash Wednesday, which is a drink, and we are filming this on Ash Wednesday, so we're just coming out of the Thanksgiving. We're coming out of the Mardi Gras festival season.
You can tell we're coming out of Mardi Gras.
Can you tell? Sure what it is? But so this is going to be our cocktail today. It's very interesting. It's kind of like a berries and cream. Think about it that way with a little bit of gin. We'll dive into it in a little bit.
We'll give it a shot. Okay, we've already talked about Derek Carr.
Right.
He is certainly on the menu tonight. And among the guys you want to talk about, your own guys, Foster Moreau.
Yeah.
Do you want to bring him back? And the biggest of questions, to me, the single biggest question is what happens with Alante Taylor.
Yeah.
He, of course, is an unrestricted free agent. So, Ross, what do you think the Saints' thinking is with Alante Taylor, and what is Alante Taylor's thinking, do you think, right now?
Yeah, I think Alante Taylor's thinking. I was trying to piece together more thinking.
Poorly worded. Yeah,
No,
sure.
I was trying to have fun. But my thing with Alante Taylor is that I think what he's thinking is going to be the most important factor in all of this. Look, Alante Taylor played a huge role in this New Orleans Saints defense last year, and really has over the course of the past few years, as both an inside and outside corner. They call it the star position in Brandon Staley's defense. It's a disruptive, chaotic, or like creation of chaos type of
and he's good
position,
at it.
and he's really, really good there, highly valuable there. And so, but the thing about that is that you don't get paid outside corner money,
but
playing that role. And so I think personally, and I'm curious if you agree, if I'm Alante Taylor, like I want to go and see if somebody's going to give me an outside corner position and therefore outside cornerback money that comes with it. It feels like he'd be a little short-sighted not to test the market.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And I've been thinking about this. Look, you got 31 other teams, and cornerback is a universal need in the NFL that you really can't have too many of. And he's a good cornerback. I can absolutely see a team, and it only takes one. There's 31 other teams. I can see a couple of teams thinking, I'd like this guy. Let's pay him. I mean, it's not going to be crazy money, but real outside cornerback money, I think, is going to be significantly more than the Saints would be willing to give.
Yeah.
The guess, and you agree with this, I think, the guess is that he won't be back if you had to put money on one or the other.
That would be my guess. I mean, look, you mentioned there's 31 other teams. One of those teams, the Indianapolis Colts, were interested in him at the trade deadline last year. Now, they got the opportunity to trade a couple of firsts and land Sauce Gardner. I think you take that opportunity when you get that. But now they have an opportunity potentially to go to the market and say, hey, why don't you come and join what we've got going on over here? There's another open outside corner spot. There's the Las Vegas Raiders. There's the San Francisco 49ers. There's the Tennessee Titans. There's so many teams in need at that position. I would not be surprised if he's in the low 20s in terms of average per year that he ends up getting somewhere else out in the market, and the Saints are not going to pay that. No team is going to pay that to play that star role, that more specialized role.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to talk about Alante because I knew you had thoughts about his position. If he does go, that's not the Saints failing if he goes. It's just the way the market plays out. You can't pay everyone top dollar. That's in the salary cap era. That's just impossible.
Yeah, similar thing happened with linebacker Caden Ellis a few years ago. Right? They wanted to keep him. Caden Ellis would have loved to have stayed in New Orleans, but he got a much better offer, and he got a starting role in Atlanta, and so he wisely went and took that.
Yeah, although I might argue in contradiction to that Dennis Allen never used him.
Oh, I would agree with that.
The way he should,
But like they wanted him, he wanted to stay, but the money and the roles weren't there.
And when Dennis Allen was the coach, he wasn't going to get the role. All right, let's bring on the guests.
All right, continuing on with the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, we are joined by our guest. Our panel has expanded. Our good friends, Keith Sanchez, the Locked On NFL Draft podcast is here. Ricardo Lecompte from right here at WWL TV joins us as well.
Yeah, all right, look, Saints first-round draft pick, Keith. I just want to start with the big question. We've talked a lot about Jeremiah Love, and we're going to be talking a lot, I think, about Jordan Tyson in the next couple of months. Let's just say great things happen, and they're both on the board for the Saints. You're making the call. Where do you go?
I'm going to go Jordan Tyson. I think the Saints desperately need a bigger bodied wide receiver to put into this wide receiver room. And I think this guy is a natural playmaker at the end of the day. I look at the Alvin Kamara situation, and we know that we would love to pair Jeremiah Love with him, but Alvin is there, right? And he can play at a productive level. So I'm going to go Jordan Tyson to come in and be that young, explosive wide receiver to help out with Chris Olave.
Adds a lot to your room.
And you can't argue with that.
Right.
I mean, you can't argue. You can argue with anything, but I mean, you can logically argue.
Yeah, they're effectively both as home run hits as you're going to get in an NFL draft.
Right,
on offense.
And the truth is, you can probably get running back help at a high level better than you could maybe with a wide, well, maybe not, in the third or fourth round.
The wide receiver depth is really good too.
That's what I was going to say. The wide receiver is good. I'd take an offensive tackle, and this is what
everybody at home just went,
he's kidding.
Wait a minute. Is Mickey Loomis making that call? It's in my ear right now. I would tend to go Jeremiah Love because I was going to mention that wide receiver depth that you have in the draft. So you can get something in the mid rounds and still address that big body wide receiver need. They've needed a running back, and I think Jeremiah Love, a playmaker that you can have in there, have that versatility. Alvin Kamara is productive, but we've seen the injury concerns. You're on the other side of 30 with Alvin Kamara, so how much more tread does he have on those tires? Have Jeremiah Love there, who is an instant playmaker, added to this offense. I would take Jeremiah Love if you had the option of both.
What do you think?
No, you first.
Me, I would take Jeremiah Love, but I 100% agree with your logic and everything. I just like Jeremiah Love as a player more than probably anybody else in the draft as far as the Saints go. Look, I got into covering sports because I find it fun to watch. Right? When I'm home, I watch ball games. I know this seems stupid for me to say, but I'm getting to my point. No. But that's what I do. And one of the greatest things about watching ball games is just watching players that I love watching. Yeah. And Jeremiah Love is just fun to watch. So I would admit that my wanting the Saints to go Jeremiah Love is partially based on I just find him crazy fun to watch.
Well, I was going to say, you're consuming sports just for the fun of it and not for the hot takes? Are you kidding me?
Oh, my goodness. Who does that anymore?
That's sports nowadays?
I find Jeremiah Love to be the most fun guy in this draft, and so that's why I went him for the Saints, although your Jordan Tyson logic is 100% on the money.
Yeah, all right. Can I have my camera? Can I have my camera?
You better deliver.
It's very simple.
Okay.
Very simple.
All right.
I'm just going to do this.
I
love Love. Yeah. I'm sorry. I wanted to go 2 for 2. I want to go 2 for 2. Yeah, I was thinking about maybe evening it up for you, but I love Love. Like I genuinely think that he is the dude. He's the dude that can come in and immediately reshape what this team is. The most successful Kellen Moore offenses in his time as a play caller have been when he's had good play at running back. He had Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard when he was in Dallas. He had effectively nothing when he was in Los Angeles, and we saw that worked out. He had Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia. That ran them all the way to a Super Bowl. This year, in 2025, they did not have a single 500-yard rusher on their team. And so I feel like if you can get a guy that's going to be a perennial 1,000-yard back, that's worth a top 10 selection. But I will say, the logic on Jordan Tyson makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. But I'm not looking for logic. I'm looking for love.
That's sort of I was going to say, like, it feels like both picks, you can't go wrong with either one.
Right. They're in a really good position.
That's where it is.
Okay.
However,
well, let's do a boil water advisory right now.
That's called a transition here. Look at that.
Drone and say because this is possible. Let's just say they're both gone. Both off the board. I know none of the mock drafts are really saying that now, but it is possible. Right. So then what happens?
That is definitely a boil water advisory, first of all. But I think you have to look at Ohio State wide receiver Carnell Tate, right? Another big-bodied wide receiver, similar to the Marcus Costans of the world. And I said, just adding to this wide receiver room, I think is important. And I'm going to break it down from Tyler Shuck being the most important piece going into his sophomore year, is that you want to make sure that he takes that second step, right? And you think of the young quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Joe Burrow, he was able to take a step. Why? Because he had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, right? Jackson Dart has Malik Neighbors to throw throat to. Caleb Williams has Roma Dunze, DJ
Luther
Moore,
Burden,
Colston
Luther
Love,
Burden,
right?
right?
And so when I
Right.
look at the philosophy of if we want to make sure that we got our guy in Tyler Shuck, I just want him surround him with enough weapons and make sure he has an abundance of weapons to get the football to.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And all those teams you mentioned invested real draft capital to get those guys.
Yeah.
So, offensive tackle here. I still think there is that need of finding that defensive end, that edge rusher that fits in that 3-4 Brandon Staley. So, we mentioned Texas Tech with Bailey. We mentioned, Miami's Bain, right?
Ruben
Bain as
Bain.
well. I think those maybe could be two options as well.
There's definitely options.
That you can look, again, just finding another piece. Maybe they don't look for free agency needs in those defensive ends. Find the draft and find something that kind of fits what Brandon Staley runs.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question because Sean Payton used to say, and this is stuck in my head, that if you want a pass rusher, you got to grow your own because they're so expensive. You know, the few that are out there, and that's rare. So in this Ballwater advisory scenario, are you taking the next best wide receiver? Or are you saying, you know what, these weapons have gone, that is giving us a better edge rusher than we should get with this pick. Do we go there?
Can I take option C?
Which is?
Option C for me is if Ohio State safety Caleb Downs is on the board.
Yeah, I like Caleb.
I think he's the best
Which might
defensive
mean he
player
would
in
be
the
for
draft.
those two to go.
Right. I think he's the best defensive player in the draft. And when you talk about what it is that Brandon Staley does, like we just talked about the impact of a potential loss of Alante Taylor. What if you're swapping out Alante Taylor for Caleb Downs? Right, and you're allowing this guy, which by the way, Caleb Downs, like 6 foot plus, 200 plus pound safety out of Ohio State. I'm using general measurements because we haven't gotten to the combine yet, but he is just that Swiss Army knife. Think Taysom Hill, but on defense. Like think about that, right? Like
good.
he is just that type of player that. You know, we talk about gravity on offense. He's gravity on defense. And so if he's on the board, I would take a serious consideration for him.
He's your 3 or he's your 2?
He might be my 2.
He might be your 2.
He might be my 2 because I have, but it's because I'm so clouded with the depth at wide receiver, which like the Saints tried to play the depth game at wide receiver last year and they got outpaced over and over again. Isaac Tesla, who was the super versatile dude out of TCU that could do like everything. Him.
Yeah.
He ended up in Green Bay, I think, or something like that. But like they tried to do that last
Williams.
year. Yes, Savion Williams. Thank you. They tried to do that last year and they got outpaced twice in that situation.
That is very interesting. And look, going to your logic, and again, the logic's very sound on the show. Going to your logic, you know, you win a Super Bowl. You win a Super Bowl with elite players,
right?
And you need a certain number of elite players. You got to have a quarterback. It looks like the Saints do. But then the elite players, it almost doesn't matter where they are. You just need a certain number of elite players if you want to compete. And if that's your guy and he's the elite player at that pick, you got to take it, right?
No, I agree with you 100%. And that's been something in the draft community, right? Because you talk about premium positions. But all pro players are all pro players at the end of the day. And I was going to back you up, Ross, on that conversation. I remember a few years ago, Kyle Hamilton was coming out, right? And he was one of the best prospects I've ever watched, right? And he ran a slow 40 time, and everybody said, premium value, he plays safety, we don't want him, right? Well, he goes to the Baltimore Ravens, and guess what? He's an all-pro safety.
He's the best safety in football.
Right, so I just wanted to back your point up with that, if Caleb Downs is there, I think you seriously consider that because the way he plays football, I think he's a culture changer and a locker room changer.
That's a great point, too.
And kind of like changing subjects there, when you talk about Kyle Hamilton running the slow time, isn't it crazy how the 40 time affects a lot of decisions, whether you go, this guy is elite just because he ran a great 40 time versus, man, we see he's put a great like resume out there. His tape looks solid. You've just watched him on College Football Saturdays going, this dude is a man.
It's different.
And they don't take him. It's crazy how like when they get into the conversations about these guys, especially when they go through the combine, how that changes because of like a couple of metrics that don't go right for them at the combine. It's crazy how that changes the perspective of some players.
And speaking of that, when we get to the combine, are there a few guys, and I am talking from a Saints perspective, or at least a Saints needs perspective, are there a few guys that you think this combine is more important for than other guys? A few guys that you say, this guy's going to have to show this at the combine? You know, a few guys that you might be watching more closely?
Yeah, and I think if you look at just hearing you guys, right, talk about Saints needs, right? Edge rushers and then wide receivers, right? There are quite a few guys. I look at Oklahoma's wide receiver, Deion Burks. He is much better than what his production has been at Oklahoma. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy steals the show at the combine because I think he's an electric runner and he's a playmaker. We talk about doing versatile things with him offensively. So that's one guy. And then you look at the edge rushers. I think I talked about Romello Height last time I was on the show. Be very important for him to run. But I think also Miami edge edge rusher Akeem Mesidor.
Man.
He is very similar to Ruben Bain, talking about
Man.
6'3", 275 pounds.
Yeah.
If he puts up a 4'6" at 265, 75 pounds, yeah, he's going to shoot up draft boards.
Yeah.
And he may be in range for the Saints.
He's one of those guys, like, I think about him and I think about Jadarian Price, the other running back from the
Second guy.
who are both really good, but completely overshadowed by the top 10, top 5 picks that are on the opposite side of him. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Do you have a wide receiver or two? Because look, we've talked about this a lot, about the depth at that position. And I know your guy from Notre Dame from the Senior Bowl, you were very high on. And I think that's another guy that the Combine's going to be huge for.
Yeah.
Do you have a couple of wide receivers that you're thinking, you know what, put an asterisk by this guy in the second or third?
Yeah. The Notre Dame wide receiver you referred to, Malachi Fields, who has some of the craziest catches on tape when it comes to WTF watching the film. And then I would say the other guy that there are two other guys that I'm really excited to see, but they're not the bigger bodied wide receivers. Like, I like to remind people that Devon Vele looked really, really good while healthy on this offense. And so the idea of like, oh, they need to get a big bodied wide receiver, that might not necessarily be what the Saints are looking for. They just might want somebody with an elite trait that gives them some extra dynamic. And so Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M, as well as Zachariah Branch out of Georgia, are two guys that I look at that have an elite trait that this team does not have, which is the yards after catch ability. They also, both guys, have some experience as returners as well. And we saw last year the Saints, once they traded away Rashid Shaheed, they kind of lost in that area of the game.
You got a guy or two that you like? Other than what Ross brought up, or you echo Ross?
Yeah, no, wide receivers, I'll go with Washington wide receiver Denzel Boston. And a lot of hype was about last year with Rome Odunze, or that's 2 years ago.
Right.
He may be equally as good, just not discussed a lot. And he's another 6'2", 6'3" guy, 200-plus pounds that I think can move. His explosive vertical guy. So I would definitely look at him and check him out.
And when you were talking about Casey Concepcion, like, I was instantly thinking, like, oh, yeah, they need something in the return game. Like, the Rashid Shaheed trade was kind of like, oh, man, like, this was the Saints going, all right, we can get value out of this, but at the same time, we're losing that key return guy. If you added someone like Casey Concepcion in the middle rounds, like, you've instantly added to your return game, which we've talked about special teams of the Saints for, outside of what Rashid Shaheed was doing, they were terrible everywhere else, right? And then now you traded Rashid Shaheed, and it's like, your special teams are terrible there. But add a guy with speed, add a guy with elite traits. Mickey Loomis is 100% looking for that, and I think that's what we're going to see in the middle rounds. He's going to be looking at some guys like that.
Yeah, I would agree. You know what time it is now?
Oh, yeah.
Last call! It is now time for our last call. Ross Jackson is in charge of the mixology this week.
That's right.
And what are we doing?
We're celebrating the end of Mardi Gras, which is a hard thing to celebrate, but this is a drink called the Ash Wednesday, which of course marks the end of Carnival season. These are my ashes right here. Yes, thank you. So we have blackberries. We're gonna muddle. This is the first time we've ever muddled on the show. So we're
First
gonna
time.
muddle today. So we're gonna do 3 blackberries per cocktail. We're gonna do 3/4 of an ounce of coconut cream. You can also use a heavy cream if you're okay with dairy. I don't do dairy, so we're doing a coconut cream. And then we have, this is not just honey, this is a honey syrup. You can see how viscous. Viscous?
It's not bad.
Yes.
Yes,
No,
it is.
It's
not
very
bad
shady.
honey.
It looks shady, but
And so that's
It is not shady.
It's not shady.
two parts honey,
shady,
1
not
part
shady.
water, and then it looks like that. If you buy it, it looks like that. Bring it back. And then just 2 ounces of gin, nice and easy. So we're gonna muddle, we're gonna shake, and then we're gonna drink.
And then we're going to drink.
Yay!
And yes, and again, this is called Last Call, and it's not just the drink. It's also our last call, our last think. Keith, we're going to let you go first. What you got for us?
Yeah, what I have for us is this. As we were talking about on the last segment, right? We talked about the draft, and I was sitting there realizing, I'm like, you know what? This draft can be a draft that changes the Saints' trajectory. I'm talking about exploding them into another level because their needs matches up with the depth of this draft.
nice.
We're talking
Yeah,
about
I like that.
edge rusher and wide receiver. They can walk away from this draft and purely dominate. I think we'll look back in 3 years from now, and we'll say that this draft totally changed the trajectory of the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, I love that.
Is
That would not be a bad thing.
Is that the potential of like 16, 17? How good it was to say?
That's
That's
I
exactly-
didn't
I was
that
just thinking
aggressive,
that.
but I was thinking that. That's what I was
That's
thinking.
good.
Yep.
Ricardo, what you got?
I'm going to switch a little bit and talk a little NBA because we were all just so consumed with Mardi Gras and the end of Carnival season. We may have missed that we had 2 Pelicans performing in the Rising Stars Challenge with Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears. Both actually made it to the finals. It was a little 4-team tournament. Derek Queen's team, Vince Carter's team ended up winning it, and he got to hold up the Rising Stars trophy. But just in the bigger picture, the slam dunk contest, the 3-point contest, the All-Star game with the Stars and Stripes versus International, it was okay. It was all right. But in the end, I know a lot of people are like, man, get rid of the All-Star game. Nobody wants to play in it, and no one cares about it anymore. The All-Star game, if you're complaining about how bad it was, remember, it's not really for you. Remember when you were kids and you're watching the 90s NBA and you're just like, man, like the guys here, I'm watching Michael Jordan go against like Karl Malone in the post, or like Charles Barkley or whatever. Like all these guys are mixing in these players and they actually kind of cared. Stop complaining. At least you had basketball during a break when these guys are getting away. You actually had something to watch. So both ends. I want to see players get involved in the All-Star game, and I want fans to just enjoy just having basketball on the screen. Remember?
Yeah.
Why do we watch sports, Doug?
Because it's fun.
Because it's fun.
Yes.
That's
the
all.
idea.
That's my last call.
We're tag teaming this one here. I got you. You go ahead.
You got it? You sure?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure we don't get the blackberry seeds
Yeah,
in
that's
there.
what I'm trying to-
That would just ruin the drink. Ruin the aesthetics of the drink.
Right.
All right, look, mine is simple, and we didn't really touch on Cam Jordan and DeMario Davis much. My last call is I sincerely hope that the Saints and Cam and DeMario can all get it done. And I say that for multiple reasons. One, because I think they can still play, and I think they can still help on the field. But two, this season, Cam Jordan was, I'm not saying was the MVP of this team, but you could make a case that he was.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about for how he held that locker room together when things were bad. And Cam Jordan is that guy, has continued to be that guy, and this locker room needs Cam and needs DeMario. I think they want to be here. I don't think the Saints are going to have to break the bank to keep them, but I do think they're going to have to make them competitive offers. Neither one of them want to throw away millions of dollars, and who would blame them? So I hope and think the Saints need to and should get this done. I think it's going to happen, but I think it's huge for this team. Not just for what's on the field, but for what they mean to this team, for a young team.
Yeah, I want to appeal. You could appeal to the emotion of those guys, right? I
Right.
remember the season, Cam Jordan talked about, like, man, if we would have been playing this way the entire season, we would have been a playoff team. So I think you can find an opportunity for Cam Jordan to be like, you know what, I want to finish this thing out here, and I want to leave the Saints in a really good spot.
Yeah.
I think that's what you appeal
I think
to.
Cam Jordan was on a recruiting trip because he was in like every single Mardi Gras parade as well.
Yes.
Smart.
Sure was.
Smart.
All right, let's
All right, here we go.
toast. What are we toasting?
What do we want to? Oh.
Let's toast to Mardi Gras.
No.
That's exactly what I was
Surviving
thinking.
Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Surviving.
It was a
Mardi Gras.
beautiful week. It was
It was
fun.
great.
With the purple drink.
With a purple drink. Oh, yeah. Now you're talking.
All right.
It is very berries and cream. Okay, so Ash Wednesday also marks the beginning of Lent, right?
Yeah.
I think this is the drink that would make me give up alcohol for Lent.
Oh, no. You're
I'm
not
not a
crazy
big
about
fan.
it?
I'm not a big fan.
I took the first sip. I can't say I loved it, but I didn't dislike it. I tell you what, you do your last call, and let's ask after that once I get a few more sips.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep drinking this.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny. Like mine, and usually we try not to double these up, but I will because I think my biggest last call going into this off-season moment is to make sure you're bringing back a guy like Cam Jordan.
Yeah.
And I'll go so far as to say it's not just that they should get it done. I think the Saints have to get that done.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Especially when it comes to Cam. I think that having that veteran presence as a part of your rebuild as you're pushing forward, I think having DeMario Davis around as you're still pushing forward in this rebuild, we have to remember that process isn't over yet.
Oh, no.
And they're playing in London, or they're playing in Paris. You probably want to take those guys along. Right?
Yeah.
They've done a lot of work. They've done a lot of work
Right.
towards
DeMario
that. So-
was with the representation for the Saints over
Yes.
there when they were
the
doing
emotional, that
Yeah.
means something.
Yeah. And so I think that paired with what I think is so far the Saints' biggest win of the offseason, which is kind of my second half here, which is that their entire coaching staff is back.
Right.
And some might say, hey, there were some things that probably could have changed, like on special teams
Special
and
teams,
things like
yeah.
that, right? Like I understand that. I think that's an important idea, the continuity, and that's why I think guys like DeMario and Cam are also important in that same aspect.
Yeah, I love that. All right, what do we think? Yes or no?
I think this drink started like the Saints season started the first half. And then after I had a few more sips, it improved to about 6 and 11.
I'm not saying this drink is a 10, but I'm saying this is for me between a 5 and a 6. If you made me another one, which you might after the show is
I
over,
will
I will
have
drink
another
another
one.
one.
Yes.
All right,
I'm going to ask for another one.
You're
And I surprisingly like it more than what I thought I was entering the show, honestly.
All right.
There we go.
I was a little nervous.
Like I love that. All right, well, we continue with the show after party. Thanks for watching this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.